writing advice is stolen from Neil Gaiman, who said, keep writing and finish things. And I think any writing advice boils down to that, and I think the finishing things is kind of the difficult part sometimes. And I know with me, it's you can just write, you can work on something for ages and ages and ages and not get it to a point where it's finished. And I like to amend that advice with a Da Vinci quote, which is, art is never finished, only abandoned. So my best advice is somewhere in between the two, and I think it is important to just keep doing it and keep writing, and you learn more just by doing. I learned more by doing those terrible drafts for my first few National Novel Writing Months. Some of them are really bad. I have all these ones where, for some reason, I could not grasp the concept of the scene break, and people would just have to keep doing things until something else happened. Like, I did this one that was something of I might get back to it and pull the good stuff out of it eventually, but it was a sprawling fairy tale inspired sort of thing, and people were, like, going from, like, one part of the kingdom to the other, and I could not just, like, stop and pick up later. They had to go to an inn. There were so many inns in this thing. I was just like, no, someone has to eat and someone has to sleep, and it would just get pedantic, and it was just, like, one of those structure things that I couldn't figure out in my head, and I was like, oh, no, wait, I could just stop and leave them there and go do something else and keep on. And I think you learn by doing with a lot of that stuff, and you find your own, like, I think the voice thing is important in learning to write. And I know my like writing voice, I think I found when I stopped trying to sound like anybody else. I was trying to sound like how I thought, like writers that I admired, or like books. I wanted to like emulate books that I'd read, and then I kind of just said, well, forget that, and just wrote what sounded right in my head. And I still have trouble thinking of myself as like a proper writer. I do naughty things with commas. Like, I am not really the best at any sort of grammar, but I kind of tried to get over those blocks and just write the way I thought it should sound, and it seems like I hit something that worked. Yeah, I think there's a lot of, it's easy to think, and I thought this for ages, that when someone writes a book, they sit down, they start writing, they get to the end, and they stop, and it's a book. And I thought this was how it was done for a very long time, and I think as an artistic process, it can involve a lot more revising and rewriting and changing your mind and trying new things, and you learn something by each draft and each change. And the Circus as a book would not be the book it is today had I not gone through all those things that didn't work. Like, it needed that journey to get to where it was. And then I see occasionally like writers who say like, oh yeah, I just go back in and fix like typos and things, but like the first draft is it, and I kind of want to smack them. But I think having done other artistic things before, like, you know that when you look at a painting, there was probably a sketch first, and then you like a play or a dance piece is rehearsed. Like, I think with writing, like, you don't necessarily look at a book and see the process that went into it. Like, it looks so nice and crisp and clean with the nice words on pages, and it can be a really messy process, and I think letting yourself go through that messy process. I realized I was a messy writer. I had one of those kind of epiphany light bulb moments. I also paint, and I'm a messy painter. I throw paint at things. Like, literally, I splash paint to get splatter patterns. So my studio is covered in paint. And I had that sort of moment when I was looking at, like, all the paint that's, like, on my walls and on the floor and on my cats. And I had that, why should I expect it to be any different when I'm writing if this is how messy I get to do a painting? So it was sort of like, it's helpful for me, and I'm trying to remind myself that now while I'm, like, now in beginning stages of writing something different, that it's allowed to be a mess. And I think letting yourself do that is good. So, but yeah, it's that keep writing and finish things. I think